I turned myself into a pickle, everybody! Boom! Big reveal! I turned myself into a pickle for Rick and Morty Season 4! That's what this is gonna be! I turned myself into a pickle! A pickle, Jacob! Rick and Morty Season 4 was not good. Honestly, I had high hopes for the season when they said it was going to be more like Season 1 and less like Season 3, but unfortunately they somehow made a much more disconnected season with worse stories and worse writing than Season 3. As somebody who actually enjoys Season 3 as a whole, despite the 4 mediocre episodes, namely, him. I'm Pickle Rick! The show promised at the end of Season 3 that things would be like Season 1, but more streamlined and remove the Beth and Jerri marriage troubles that plagued the first 2 seasons. As somebody who believes Season 1 is by far the best of the bunch, I was excited at this announcement. The Rick and Morty fanbase rose and fell in a matter of weeks, as they all got bullied into submission with the high IQ meme and the death of Musical.ly. Nearly 2 years passed and Rick and Morty returned to grace our screens and enlarge our society's collective IQ with Rick and Morty Season 4. Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Repeat is a decent episode. It uses an interesting concept to tell a story of Morty going on a murder spree and getting away with it, all in the name of dying with Jessica. But that plot's kind of boring, as things just happen to Morty, since it's not him doing the actions, it's the death crystal embedded in his forehead telling him to do it, so Morty's not really in control of his actions. He could have just been anybody for most of the episode. Rick's plot is funnier, but there's also a lot less screen time dedicated to it. Rick dies in a car crash and is taken to another universe through the clone vat. The writers use this plotline to complain about the people who didn't like Season 3. They write in Fascist Morty, a Morty who wants Rick to stop doing meta-commentary and have fun, classic Rick and Morty adventures. The episode surrounding this is fine. Hologram Rick is not subtle at all at what he's a parody of, but it didn't bother me that much. It sucks because the concept of the death crystals is really cool, but they don't do much with it other than Morty following one future instead of looking at a lot of them and making the best choices. They do some more meta commentary saying that they're gonna do a little bit of this and a little bit of that in another garage rant scene. The post-credits scene has a really funny ending, but makes the rest of the episode pointless, albeit intentionally. Edge of Tomorty, Rick Die Repeat was a fine episode, but the season's biggest weaknesses are already showing. Don't worry, I'll get to it when I finish the season. Rick's toilet gets used by someone and he hunts them down planning to kill them. Episode 2 tries to be this season's Pickle Rick, not in popularity, but in purpose. Rick is completely unstoppable, but is halted by a powerless character who lectures Rick on the universe and his place in it. I would argue the Old Man in the Seat beats Pickle Rick in this regard, as it isn't the only plot going on, and the lecture itself isn't as boring as the Pickle Rick scene. It also happens around the middle of the episode, allowing the plot to progress past this, and his lesson to sink in with Rick. The Old Man in the Seat thankfully has both a B and a C plot that interact with each other, allowing Rick's adventure to have room to breathe without being boring. Rick gets an intern named Gluty, played by Taika Waititi, and once he leaves to go on his toilet adventure, Jerri makes an app with him that goes worldwide. Morty and Jerri have to go on an adventure to stop the dating app before the aliens take all of Earth's water while the humans are distracted. The C plot is Beth chasing Summer while she follows the new soulmate the app generates her. The B plot is the most consistently good, as Rick's plot kind of falters once he finds Tony, and the Summer and Beth plot never really gets interesting, as it's just the same joke repeated over and over again. The Rick plot is really entertaining, watching his hunt for Tony in the first half, but once he decides to spare him, the episode loses my interest. The other 2 plots end pretty quickly, as Gluty adds a paywall to the app and everyone on Earth uninstalls it. The episode did have a good line or two, but overall it was not great, not awful. Rick hates the heist movie genre and has to stop a robot he built from heisting the entire universe. Also, Elon Musk is here. Also, Mr. PBH makes a return and is now a college professor. I like this episode. I don't have much to say other than that, as this episode is told in one story, but told through the heist movie genre. The episode uses tropes and visuals from movies like the Ocean films, and does a good job at keeping up the momentum. I do think the montages take up a little too much time, but the background music helps alleviate it. Dan Harmon's blatant hatred of the heist movie genre is the writer's room bleeding into the episode. However, I do think the writers do a good enough job covering up their tracks and working it into the story so that it's not as obvious. The only other complaint I have to lobby against the episode is Elon Musk's performance. Like, it's really stilted. I'm wondering if they just didn't want to anger him, so they went with his first take. It felt like the Rick and Morty I waited 2 years for. The episode wasn't perfect, but it was a fun experience, which is all I want from the show. Okay, first off, what a terrible title. I was saving this for later, but this one takes the cake. I think this is the worst title I've seen from the show. Why shoehorn Rick and Morty's name into it? Why add the Special Victims Unit part anyways? Lawnmower Dog from Season 1 was just that. Me Seeks and Destroy was a solid title that stuck in Me Seeks into a pre-existing title. All I'm saying is Claw and Hoarder would have sufficed, and that's what I'm calling the episode. Morty gets a dragon and Jerri gets a talking cat. One plot is serviceable, and the other is well below par. Or should I say, well below purr? Jerri's plot is that there's a talking cat played by Matthew Broderick who refuses to explain why he can talk. So they both end up going to Florida. And Morty's plot is that he gets a dragon who likes Rick much more, and they soul bond. Here's the joke for the episode. Dragons are deviants. Dan Harmon plays this wizard character who is not funny. He has one joke, and it's not funny. They go to the realm of magic where Rick's science is worthless until the act break when he's able to harvest magic and use it like a gun, so what was the point? They convince the dragons to kill the wizard, then they kill the wizard and break the soul bonds. The better plot ends with Rick picking up both Jerri and the cat, scanning its mind to see why it can talk, which traumatizes both Rick and Jerri and forces the cat to run away. Honestly, their reactions to what they saw was funnier than any other joke in the episode by a mile. This episode was watchable, but only for the interesting visuals and for the ending. Basically, Morty gets bitten by a space snake, kills it, feels bad, replaces it, and they try to kill him using time travel. Rick and Morty had a rule that they would not do time travel because it feels like that's the sci-fi jump the shark moment. Once you time travel, you don't really go back. Gratefully, after giving us the worst episode of the series to this point, they give us the best episode of the season so far. Despite breaking their rule on time travel, the story actually makes sense as it doesn't focus on the time travel itself and instead focuses on the characters getting themselves out of the story. The episode brings back the time cops from the season 2 premiere and they beat up the snakes, I guess removing snake time travel from the story. Jerri gets his third subplot of the season as Rick gives him the ability to float, but he can't get back to the ground. I don't have a lot to say about the episode because it was genuinely funny. I would like to say the snake montage is a great example of show don't tell, something they struggled with in season 3, but it does go on for way too long. As you'll see later in the season, this is something they have a tendency to do. A funny Rick and Morty episode with a sci-fi premise could have sped up the montage a bit. Rick and Morty are trapped in an anthology special and are trying to go through the story train to escape. The opening concept of it being a train of people telling stories about Rick Sanchez and why they want to kill him was actually pretty cool, as it would have our Rick and Morty in the episode, but would technically focus on other characters. I understand the episode would have been boring if they just went with that concept, but the direction they chose to go with was pretty bland. Rick and Morty make meta humor and meta commentary for the entire episode, The Episode. This episode is designed to torment the fans and frustrate the theorists with alternate realities and continuity-breaking moments, only to reveal none of it is true as it is a toy. Our Rick and Morty were looking at a toy train the whole episode that contained the Rick and Morty we were watching. Rick goes on a kind of funny drunk rant on capitalism and how much he loves money, and then the episode has Rick bring up the virus. Funny. I did like the ending to the Evil Morty scene where Rick prays to Jesus Christ for help and then he just arrives. It was a funny way to end their conflict by using the plot and pre-established stuff about the characters. Most of the episode felt disjointed and overly meta in the same season where they addressed the criticism that they were being too meta in season 3. So I guess they don't care about their fans. They did do something Battle for Bikini Bottom couldn't do and have Clancy Brown in the episode, so that was cool. Promortyus is the parasite episode. This episode's big twist is that the parasites were actually nice all along, trying to pull some kind of point the finger at the protagonist for killing them thing. However, I don't feel bad for the parasites, and I still side with Rick and Morty for demolishing their whole civilization. Sure, the parasites believe Glorzo is peace, but they attacked Rick and Morty like typical monsters. Not to mention they tried to shoot a missile at Earth to Glorzo the planet. You can look at the episode and try to make out a metaphor, but I'm looking at the episode on an entertainment level, and man was this episode a snores fest. The writers tried to write this plot out of order, and it made me feel like the episode never reached a climax. I mean, the climax should be at the end of the episode, but instead, the episode practically starts off with the climax. For some reason, Rick and Morty are really supportive of each other in this episode, and it comes out of nowhere. Honestly, it wasn't funny, nor was Rick's random announcement that he's political. Dan Harmon sings this episode's montage song, Glory to Glorzo, and I hate it. A lot. Summer was really out of character this episode, and I feel like the writers just threw her back into her Season 1 not really caring about anything persona, which is weird because Season 3 tried to flesh her out more. They also blatantly ignored the question of why didn't Summer try to free Rick and Morty sooner. This episode was an experiment that went horribly wrong, and I hope the writers try to maintain character consistency for the rest of the season. The Vat of Acid episode is pretty good. Rick adds a fake Vat of Acid to a crystal deal, and Morty insults him for it. Then Morty gets a device to add save points to the real world. This episode feels like it was drowned in the writer's room because the first half of the episode, the half where Rick and Morty are arguing over the vat, just feels like the writer's room arguing over the past episodes. Rick mentions that Pickle Rick was epic, but Claw and Hoarder sucked, so I guess even the writers knew that episode was awful. Funnily enough, the episode ran short, so they added a 5-minute long scene of Morty trying out the remote and falling in love, only to lose his girlfriend by the hand of Jerri's ignorance. The montage is the worst thing about the episode, similar to the snake one, but it was also a lot less ambitious, and it took up way more time. Other than the fact that the montage was just there and wasn't needed, the episode was great. The twist at the end of Rick orchestrating the entire thing to torment Morty for killing all the alternate versions of himself, only to get him to use the same Vat of Acid he criticized, was amazing. The episode was enjoyable for the most part and felt like a classic episode, despite the excruciatingly long montage. Childrick of Mort is awful. Rick had sex with the planet, and now he and Beth are watching after the planet's clay children and helping them build a civilization. Meanwhile, Jerri's trying to camp on said planet, and Morty and Summer try to play video games and get high. Okay, so Rick and the family go to a planet, and Rick's ready to abandon the clay people. But because her only character trait is that Rick abandoned her, Beth forces him to stay. They build a machine and a civilization for the clay people, abandoning the unproductive members of said civilization, who meet up with Jerri and start a camping-based army. I hate this episode so much. Morty and Summer's characters are gone, as they just sit there and only talk about drugs and video games for the entire episode. I get these are things the characters like, but when Summer goes on an unprovoked "why you suck" speech to Jerri, it just seems really out of character. Oh yeah, Rick fights a god in this episode. Like, in a fist fight. Probably the most boring way to have Rick Sanchez fight a literal god, but whatever. Don't watch this episode. It's the worst episode of the series by far in my book. Hopefully the season can pull it together for a satisfying conclusion. Oh, they actually did it. A decent conclusion to the season. Granted, awful meta-commentary and out-of-character moments aplenty, but there was actually a decent plot this time around. The finale, despite its awful title, does a pretty good job continuing plot threads it left back in Season 3 and teased earlier this season. It reintroduces the clone storyline in a natural way and works with the Phoenix Person and Tammy stuff neatly. This episode brings back the question of did Rick clone Beth, and the answer is yes. But now the question has evolved into which Beth is the real one, all while the Galactic Federation is invading Earth. Rick kills Tammy and fights Phoenix Person in a pretty good fight scene. Beth and Clone Beth bond over their one character trait of hating their father. Morty and Summer destroy the Death Laser using the power of Wrangler genes, and Jerri saves the day using a dead Tammy as a puppet. And the season's sent off with a lovely post-credit scene. The episode, while overly meta and full of Beth-on-Beth interaction, which is just, "Me hate our dad, wee wee, me hate him too," There were legitimately fun moments in the episode, and it had some great lines, as well as finally wrapping up a pre-established plotline, making the story train episode even more pointless. The episode also wrapped up on a moment that was done better and with much more subtlety than the toilet episode. Could have been better without the writer's room patting itself on the back every 2 minutes, but it was still a fun episode to top off the season, so it's okay. Season 4 was filled with problems that permeated over the entire season. I feel like the season was overall unfocused and underdone. The season tried to be like Season 1, but instead it ended up feeling incredibly disconnected because of where it goes. Given the season finale, you would expect the season to be building up to the final episode, if not directly, subtly. But it doesn't happen. The characters aren't changing past their premiere stage, and it makes watching the entire season really unrewarding. Morty's character is very inconsistent throughout the season. In some episodes, he doesn't want to go on adventures with Rick, and in others he does. He'll yell at Rick for having terrible ideas, but 2 episodes before and in that very same episode, he'll be incredibly supportive of Rick. I get that these moments are trying to be funny, that the characters randomly being real with each other is a humorous concept, but if the season finale is trying to make me believe that they would all just turn on Rick, it failed. Morty's not the only character who suffered from this. Characters like Beth and Summer jump back and forth with their perception of Rick. Summer basically reset her entire character and got even worse from her Season 1 counterpart. Beth in the first 3 seasons is everyone's least favorite addition to the cast, as she has no character other than that she's a horse surgeon, an alcoholic, and longs for her father's approval. They try to remove her need for Rick's approval, only to add it and remove it in episode 9. The writers have Beth get Rick's appreciation, agree that Rick should fight Zeus, but end the episode with Beth changing her opinion on Rick for no reason. Not that it matters, because Beth sides with Rick in the beginning of the next episode, despite showing that Beth and Jerri's marriage is stronger than ever. I don't think it's too much to ask for a little consistency when you're writing a TV show. For some reason, the season amps up its fourth wall breaks to 11. I don't know if it's just the writers getting lazy, or if they forgot that they were supposed to be writing characters and not signaling messages to the audience, but it happened regardless. Okay, why is Dan Harmon like everywhere in the season? It just gets annoying because every time he voices a character, or sings, he doesn't really do a voice, it's just him. I'm not going to be overdramatic and say Rick and Morty's dead. That would be a dumb statement. But it did noticeably downgrade this season. I'll still watch the show when it airs, but when I'm done with this video, I wouldn't be upset if Rick and Morty take a year to come back, because I'm tired of hearing about it and watching it. If Evil Morty could finally do something, then that would be great. I would also be okay with Rick and Morty just going on sci-fi adventures. There's no reason they can't do both. But if it's anything like this season, I'm going to regret sticking with it. Obviously, Space Beth is going to be a key player now, if not for being the reason Rick had lost touch with the family, then just being a character who will serve as a reminder that this season even happened. I'm sorry, viewers, it's a bummer. In reality, this season was the worst of the 4, and I was looking forward to it so bad and it just left me in the form of a pickle. I guess that's more my fault than the season's, but it's still a disappointment. So now I'm gonna need to do some more videos. And then I'm gonna do even more after that then, viewers. And you're gonna watch them. And together we're gonna look at all kinds of interesting things, viewers. It's just you and me, viewers. The fact that I'm a pickle won't inhibit it at all, viewers. It's not gonna be a problem for me. It's gonna be okay that I'm a pickle. We can do all kinds of cool reviews on the channel, viewers. It's gonna be ThatVideoJacob. ThatVideoJacob and his reviews, everybody. I'm ThatVideoJacob, and I'm gonna do all kinds of fun video game and movie, and I'm gonna talk about other stuff too. I can talk about like Minecraft or something. I do Let's Plays on my second channel, 100 years, www.com/YouTube, youtube.com/ThatVideoJacob, all 100 times over, 100 million years of ThatVideoJacob, forever 100, youtube.com, ThatVideoJacob, ha!